Hello and welcome back to our Chronological Bible in a Year reading plan. Today is day 215 and we are reading 2 Chronicles 32 and 33. 2 Chronicles 32. After these matters and this trustworthiness, Sanherib, sovereign of Ashur, came, and he entered Yehudah and encamped against the cities of defense, and said to break them open to himself. And Hizkiyahu saw that Sanherib had come, and his face turned to fight against Jerusalem. And he took counsel with his rulers and mighty men to stop the water from the springs which were outside the city. And they helped him. And many people were gathered, and they stopped all the springs and the stream that ran through the land, saying, Why should the sovereigns of Ashur come and find much water? And he strengthened himself, and built up all the wall that was broken, and raised it up to the towers, and outside of it another wall, and strengthened Millo, the city of David, and made large numbers of weapons and shields. And he appointed battle officers over the people, and gathered them to him in the open space at the city gate, and spoke to their heart, saying, Be strong and courageous, do not be afraid, nor be cast down before the sovereign of Ashur, nor before all the army that is with him, for with us there are more than with him. With him is an arm of flesh, but with us is Yahuwah our Elohim, to help us and to fight our battles. And the people leaned on the words of Hizkiyahu, sovereign of Yehudah. After this, Sanherib, the sovereign of Ashur, sent his servants to Jerusalem, but he himself and all his power with him against Lachish, to Hizkiyahu, sovereign of Yehudah, and to all Yehudah who were in Jerusalem, saying, Thus said Sanherib, the sovereign of Ashur, On what are you trusting that you remain in Jerusalem under siege? Is Hizkiyahu not persuading you to give yourselves over to die by scarcity of food and by thirst, saying, Yahuwah our Elohim shall deliver us from the hand of the sovereign of Ashur? Has not Hizkiyahu himself taken away his high places and his altars, and ordered Yehudah and Jerusalem, saying, Bow yourselves before one altar and burn incense on it? Do you not know what I and my fathers have done to all the peoples of other lands? Were the mighty ones of the nations of those lands in any way able to deliver their lands out of my hand? Who is there among all the mighty ones of those nations that my fathers put under the ban that could deliver his people from my hand, that your Elohim should be able to deliver you from my hand? And now do not let Hizkiyahu deceive you or persuade you like this, and do not believe him, for no mighty one of any nation or reign was able to deliver his people from my hand, or the hand of my fathers, much less your Elohim to deliver you from my hand. And his servant spoke even more against Yahuwah Elohim, and against his servant Hizkiyahu. And he wrote letters to reproach Yahuwah Elohim of Yisrael, and to speak against him, saying, As the mighty ones of the nations of other lands have not delivered their people from my hand, so the Elohim of Hizkiyahu shall not deliver his people from my hand. Then they called out with a loud voice in the language of Yehudah to the people of Jerusalem who were on the wall, to frighten them and to trouble them in order to capture the city. And they spoke against the Elohim of Jerusalem as against the mighty ones of the people of the earth, the work of men's hands. And sovereign Hizkiyahu and the Nabi, which means the prophet, Yeshayahu, son of Amoz, prayed about this, and cried out to the Shemaim, which means to the heavens. Excuse me. And Yahuwah sent a messenger who cut down every mighty brave one, both the leader and the commander in the camp of the sovereign of Ashur, and he returned shamefaced to his own land, and went into the house of his mighty one, and there some of his own offspring caused him to fall by the sword. Thus Yahuwah saved Hizkiyahu and the inhabitants of Jerusalem from the hand of Sanherib, the sovereign of Ashur, and from the hand of all others, and guided them on every side. And many brought gifts to Yahuwah at Jerusalem, and presents to Hizkiyahu, sovereign of Yehudah, and he was exalted in the eyes of all nations thereafter. In those days Hizkiyahu was sick and near death, and he prayed to Yahuwah. And he spoke to him, and appointed a sign for him. However, Hizkiyahu did not repay according to the good done to him, for his heart was lifted up. Therefore wrath came upon him, and upon Yehudah and Jerusalem. Then Hizkiyahu humbled himself for the pride of his heart, he and the inhabitants of Jerusalem, so that the wrath of Yahuwah did not come upon them in the days of Hizkiyahu. And Hizkiyahu had much riches and esteem, and he made himself treasuries for silver and for gold, and for precious stones, and for spices, and for shields, and for all desirable utensils, and storehouses for the harvest of grain, and wine, and oil, and stalls for all kinds of livestock, and folds for flocks. And he made cities for himself, and possessions of great numbers of flocks and herds, for Elohim gave him much property. And Hizkiyahu himself had stopped the upper outlet of the waters of Gihon, and directed them to the west side of the city of David. And Hizkiyahu prospered in all his work. However, with the envoys of the princes of Babel, whom they sent to ask him about the wonder that was done in the land, Elohim left him in order to try him, to know all that was in his heart. And the rest of the acts of Hizkiyahu and his kindness, see, they are written in the vision of Yeshayahu the Nabi, again the prophet, son of Amos, in the book of the sovereigns of Yehuda and Israel. So Hizkiyahu slept with his fathers, and they buried him in the upper tombs of the sons of David. And all Yehuda and inhabitants of Jerusalem esteemed him at his death. And Manasseh his son reigned in his place. Chapter 33. Manasseh was 12 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 55 years in Jerusalem. But he did evil in the eyes of Yahuwah, according to the abominations of the Gentiles, whom Yahuwah dispossessed from before the children of Israel. For again he rebuilt the high places which Hizkiyahu his father had broken down, and raised up altars for the Baals, and made Asherim, and bowed himself to all the host of the heavens, and served them. And he built altars in the house of Yahuwah, of which Yahuwah had said, In Jerusalem is my name forever. And he built altars for all the host of the heavens in the 2 courtyards of the house of Yahuwah. And he made his sons pass through the fire in the valley of Ben Hinnom, and practiced magic, and used divination and witchcraft, and consulted mediums and spiritists. He did much evil in the eyes of Yahuwah to provoke him. And he placed a carved image of the idol which he had made in the house of Elohim, of which Elohim had said to David and to Shlomo his son, In this house and in Jerusalem, which I have chosen out of all the tribes of Israel, I put my name forever, and no more shall I remove the foot of Israel from the land which I have appointed for your fathers, only if they guard to do all that I have commanded them, according to all the Torah and the laws and the right rulings by the hand of Moshe. Thus Manasseh led Yehuda and the inhabitants of Jerusalem astray, to do more evil than the Gentiles whom Yahuwah had destroyed before the children of Israel. And Yahuwah spoke to Manasseh and to his people, but they did not listen. Therefore Yahuwah brought upon them the commanders of the army of the sovereign of Ashur, who captured Manasseh with hooks, bound him with bronze shackles, and made him go to Babel. And when he was in distress, he sought the face of Yahuwah his Elohim, and humbled himself greatly before the Elohim of his fathers, and prayed to him. And he was moved by his entreaty, and heard his supplication, and brought him back to Jerusalem into his reign. And Manasseh knew that Yahuwah was Elohim. And after this he built a wall outside the city of David on the west of Gihon, in the Wadi, and as far as the entrance of the fish gate, and it went round Ophel, and he made it exceedingly high. And he put army commanders in all the walled cities of Yehuda. And he removed the foreign mighty ones and the idol from the house of Yahuwah, and all the altars that he had built in the mount of the house of Yahuwah and in Jerusalem, and he threw them out of the city. And he built an altar of Yahuwah, and brought peace offerings and thank offerings on it, and ordered Yehuda to serve Yahuwah Elohim of Israel. But the people were still offering on the high places, though only to Yahuwah their Elohim. And the rest of the acts of Manasseh, his prayer to his Elohim, and the words of the seers who spoke to him in the name of Yahuwah Elohim of Israel, see, they are written in the book of the sovereigns of Israel. And his prayer, and his entreaty, and all his sin, and his trespass, and the places where he built high places, and stood up to Asherim in the carved images, before he was humbled, see, they are written among the words of the seers. So Manasseh slept with his fathers, and they buried him in his own house. And his son Amon reigned in his place. Amon was 22 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 2 years in Jerusalem. But he did evil in the eyes of Yahuwah, as his father Manasseh had done. And Amon offered to all the carved images which his father Manasseh had made, and served them. And he did not humble himself before Yahuwah, as his father Manasseh had humbled himself, for Amon trespassed more and more. And his servants conspired against him, and killed him in his own house. But the people of the land smote all those who had conspired against sovereign Amon, and the people of the land appointed his son Yoshiyahu to reign in his place. And that concludes our reading for today. As always, I thank you for joining us, and I pray that you are reading for yourself. And peace and blessings and love to you. See you in the next one.